Hey guys, welcome back. I like this one. Whew. So what? But again, I hope you like the last one. So we're gonna do this one and see how it's gonna go. Thanks for tuning in again. Really appreciate it. Please share, like, and comment. Okay. If you know the you know the drill. You know the drill. Among many officers, this detective was frequently called to come and help kids, especially those that have stepped out of their way looking for a boost, someone to believe in them. Without much, this detective was called. Most people who pass by an addict are disguised, but this is not the case for the detective. Much of his work is dedicated to reintegrating living souls into society. The investigator admired his work compared to other jobs, especially higher and more respected ones. He knew that his job was difficult. Humans who have learned what it means to change one's life, who always admire the truth taught by someone else. It is more difficult to understand whether there is ever anything to learn when there is better perception, and that the perception is clear. When we think about it, we are only concerned with the fact that there is a world out there, and there is a world out there we can't access. Furthermore, Maneko had found someone who believed in him, because his life had been so defeated that he didn't even have a roof over his head. For him, every corner was much more difficult, and finding something as interesting as this was remarkable. There had to be some sort of transition between realizing what was at stake if he blew this opportunity, and the longest hours he would spend without using drugs of any kind. And even a cigarette wouldn't stop him from accomplishing his goal, which was to get out of these streets alive. Well, with a purpose. Without that, it would be impossible for him to give up the drugs he had been using for 13 years. It is a miserable life, and his stepfather fought with him to get out of it, but his friends loved him more, and they were at least the epitome. Oh, guys, English. The epitome of peer pressure. Whenever a conversation between him and his stepfather was spread out, he would be pushed out and turning him into a demon child whose life was to break and wreak havoc in his parents' life. His mother initially believed that a new husband did not love the child, which raised the issue of love in their marriage, and that the child had caused the problems. Despite the fact that Maneko had been ignored and neglected, his family wanted him back. Even if he was doing drugs out there, his mother began putting her life together soon after Maneko's father died. So she remarried a good man to fill the gap of the missing father. She also educated herself. She was no longer going to complain about how difficult to be a single parent was. She worked herself up and saw that her children had a bright future. There were other children, but it had to start with her leading the way, taking the first step. Or her other three children would have had only wishful hopes found in poor families. Maneko's family was a project he created for himself, and in order to be redeemed, he needed to put the same energy into it that he had the first time he walked into it. His parents had sent him to various rehabs facilities, but at the age of 14, he escaped from one of them. He pretended to be spoiled even when it was unnecessary, because his parents could afford a middle class income, which he abused from stealing from them to stay away from home. The confrontation was only breaking his mother's heart, which was wicked of him. So he learned to avoid all his relatives until his head was right. When he was high, he promised himself never to engage with Nyaope again. But whenever he was low, he took an empty cup and began asking for food, and the drug would have made him hungry. And when someone gave him food, he was grateful, but he would sell it. Oh, most of his friends he exchanged food for drugs with, which kept him going. Tinashe came through after spending a day with him, and hearing Tinashe's testimonies, like Maneko wished to have a similar thing, and this served as inspiration. Being around Tinashe helped him to keep his eyes open and defended whatever was left of his dignity. He didn't want anyone to give it to him. nor did he want anyone to lower the bar for him. He desired to resolve his issues. He had not asked Tinashe for anything. He had not asked Tinashe for anything in exchange for a fee, nor was he still available for Hondas. It was just the right time for him to raise his head. Are you prepared? Tinashe inquired. When Maneko had fully matured, he assured Tinashe that he would have his back without fear. Everything seemed, when they walked into the Anglo-American buildings, they didn't have the appearance of those of the folks that were looking for anything. They would have thuggery appearance similar to the type of people which minds exploit human life through human trafficking. They would have a thuggery appearance similar to the type of people. They were minds used for city drug dealers, where they made a drug, test it, and then deliver it to those who are unfortunate enough not to have a bright future. When humanity reaches a point where it understands the love, where it understands the value of love above money, they are spiritually enabled, because they go beyond the disabled without being disabled. When folks reach a point where they believe there is an escape route, they take it. Maneko was a broken soul. Even the demons who had played such an important role in his spiritual world, he had broken the walls to every corner of his soul, that there was nowhere to hide, because the devil was everywhere. But the defeat does not mean the end. There was still hope. He had shaved his head. I'm not gonna shave my head. I'm not gonna shave my head. Which was adorned with white stars he had received from, which was a compliment to white stars he had received from Tinashe. That was just enough for him to put together an outfit out of a white T-shirt and jeans. Tinashe was dressed in a similar style. He knew that by remaining casual, no one would care, because it was non-threatening. When humanity are focused on change, that change will bring them close to their souls. It is up to them to put in the effort to achieve what they believe will change their lives. They went to the assistant table in the middle of the building, where two ladies were sitting. They seamlessly transitioned into the conversation. The right questions to ask were critical, and they needed to know if they were in the right place. Tinashe leaned in close to the table. He greeted this woman, and they began talking about the company. He wanted to know more about the company and what was written on the internet, because so much information is available on the internet. Because some mortals, so ignorant to conduct thorough research, much is missed and false claims are spread without reason. Men and women should learn that much. Because the gap between learning the truth and falling into a lie is much wider than the one enforced. So most of Tinashe's questions came from a concerned person, just as every company has a department for folks who come around with concerns and want to learn more about the work the company is doing in the society beyond its business and how it benefits the company. Much of this Tinashe had learned from Dr. Cho. Much of this Tinashe had learned from Dr. Cho, as well as from some of the detective novels that the doctor had insisted he read. It had been much more difficult for him to read a single line when he had first walked into the house, but through time he managed to get through it. The desire to change would always be appealing. And the desire to learn would always be the inspiration that others seek. One of the assistants stood up to open the door for them using a company keycard. She told them to wait on the couch until someone came to pick them up to go to one of the offices. They started reading some stock newspapers that were piled on the table while they waited. But this was unquestionably the wrong place to be. It served as a hub for other smaller branch divisions, marketing new mines and locations with ongoing projects. The only folks who would come into this building were stock investors, not two boys looking for mines. Most child soldiers in Uganda, DRC, and Central African Republic and South Sudan were adopted as children by the non-state armed groups, and a large number of them may still be children when they rejoin their families and communities. The human security threats of settling these child soldiers is in fragile countries present the danger of a vicious cycle for the youth, as they have to cope with the same realities that drive them into conflicts. This, coupled with social stigmatization of child soldiers recruited or used by armed actors, may be viewed with suspicion or outright rejection by their families and communities. There was a lot of chaos going on in the building, but no one seemed to be sweating. All the faces were much more normal, and the ladies were as lovely as ever. Some with and some without makeup. There was a chance that the bill of new students being recruited into the corporate would have distracted them. Without a doubt, individuals who are deeply involved in changing the world are more concerned with dealing with the real problems that exist. They were waiting downstairs for them who walked to them and handed them 2 visitor badges. To be honest, when there is an opportunity to reshape the world for the better, only a few people take it. That's true. So, what are you guys looking for? He inquired. He seemed friendly as they walked down the hall to his office, and it was an advantage they wouldn't pass. Tinashe responded as Maneko trod behind them. I am doing school research, and I wanted to know all the mines in the city that are associated with the company or with other mines, and where they are all found, and if we can go there and how we can locate them. Oh, that won't be difficult. School research, huh? Okay, he responded. Yes, we are working on a way to stop those land degradation after the mines were kept non-operative. We wanted to visit the mine site at some point and get the first hand of life outside of the city for most important lands, he told them. Tinashe opened up about his concerns when given the opportunity, and since the company had many of its documents exposed to the public, they would always find it necessary to respond to the fact without anything to hide. A company could provide students with enough information to enable them to learn the practicality of life. Furthermore, the investigator, it was around 12 p.m., which is 12 noon during the day. The investigator had obtained the needed number of warrants. He drove first to see these buildings and access the actual force that was needed, rather than relying on the one he had listed in the warrant. Some of these buildings had been taken over by poor people, but members of these societies were not eager to help one another. Instead, robbed, and those with money were being robbed without counting it. This was unjust to the children left behind because of the notorious violence that the residents of these buildings were known for. No government officials would have entered these buildings. When he drove downtown, he noticed that most of the folks doing drugs were victims, convinced that previously they were perpetrators. When the truth was much, and when it was revealed, he was able to drive the demons that had been roaming the streets for so long. He parked outside and smoked a cigarette, remembering how he had worked to quit smoking. He purchased Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, to help him work around it. He threw away the cigarette and walked close to the buildings, which had busted sewage pipes and a strong odor of urine. Even if they had a gun, most officers would not dare to enter the building. It had been used as a prostitution base, and so after every settlement, the landlord couldn't care less about bringing the building back to life. People who were abused were to be found in these buildings, and he realized that illegal guns would be hidden in these buildings. If everything went well, many folks would mistake him for a messiah. However, most criminals would have viewed him as a threat that needed to be eliminated. He was not going to sit idle in this case, and needed to find a way out. So he sought other officers to assist him in achieving this goal. Yo, thank you guys again for pushing in and coming in and for staying put to the end. So we're gonna jump in onto the next one. I hope you guys will tune in on the next one. Tell me what you think about this one, and also don't forget to like it, share it with abangane, with friends. So thanks guys. Juices, I'm out.
Swagger down the street with your red